Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving deep into the terrifying, totally chaotic fighting style of Gwyn, better known as the weapon genius from the Lookism universe. You know, in a world absolutely packed with fighters who rely on massive muscles or just raw brute strength, Gu terrifies the absolute best of them entirely because of what he happens to be holding in his hands.
Right off the bat, to truly wrap our heads around Gu, we have to look at his rival. While Gun Park is the absolute embodiment of rigid structure and relentless formal training, Gu is the embodiment of wild chaos and weaponized improvisation. He proves, quite literally, that an everyday chopstick can actually be deadlier than a bare fist, provided you understand the mechanics behind it.
So consider this your masterclass guide to his style. We're going to break it down into 5 crucial parts: the anatomy of chaos, mastering range and footwork, the whip-like strike, environmental improvisation, and finally, the lethal jester mindset.
Let's kick things off with Section 1, the anatomy of chaos, grounding the wildness.
Here's the truly wild thing about Gu. His chaos is, fundamentally, a complete lie. Sure, he acts like a total goofball, but every single movement he makes is actually anchored in the incredibly strict, formal discipline of Kundo, or Korean Kendo, the traditional art of the sword. He isn't dangerous just because he randomly swings things around. He's a lethal threat because he's a master of this highly structured art, and he successfully adapted it to the messy, unpredictable reality of street fighting. We absolutely have to respect this foundation first.
Moving right along to Section 2, Mastering Range and Footwork, Building the Base.
Think about it. The absolute biggest advantage you have with a weapon is managing your range. In a bare-knuckle brawl, you gotta be up close and personal to do any damage. But with a weapon, even a short one, instantly extends your kill zone. To fight like Gu, you don't walk, you glide. It's called ashi sabaki. By keeping your weight perfectly balanced, you can instantly explode forward to strike or snap backward to evade. You're expanding your reach while keeping your own body entirely out of your opponent's striking distance.
And get this, you can actually train this exact foundation right at home using the Saraisi sliding step drill. Grab a broomstick, or a shinai, and practice moving across the floor without your feet ever leaving the ground. The entire goal here is to maintain this perfect, calculated distance where you can hit your target, but there is no way they can reach you to hit back.
All right, stepping into Section 3, the whip-like strike, lethal precision. So your feet are planted properly, now let's move up the body, because a weapon is definitively not just a club. If you pick up a stick and take a slow, wide swing like you're holding a baseball bat, you are leaving yourself completely wide open. Instead, Gu uses what's called the tuni, or the snap. The mechanical power isn't coming from the shoulders, it's coming directly from the wrists and the sudden, intense squeeze of the grip at the exact millisecond of impact. It is a blindingly fast, whip-like motion that can literally break skin before the opponent even registers the swing.
This perfectly illustrates how Gu takes tradition and just completely twists it for the street. Traditional kendo hunts for specific points like the head, the wrist, and the body. But Gu's street adaptation is utterly ruthless. He abandons those formal points to specifically destroy joints. A sharp strike to a wrist bone with a hard object, that will instantly force anyone to drop their guard. He isn't just swinging wildly hoping for a knockout. He is surgically disabling limbs with pinpoint precision.
Which brings us to Section 4, environmental improvisation. This superpower.
Now, we get to the bigger picture, and honestly, where his real terrifying genius lies. Gu has this insane ability to turn his immediate surroundings into a literal armory. A shoe, glasses frames, a pencil. To him, those are all swords. But to pull that off, you have to develop material intelligence. That's the tactical ability to instantly read an object, assess its physical properties in a fraction of a second, and immediately know exactly how to inflict maximum damage with it.
Let's break down how his brain categorizes the world. Piercing items like pencils or chopsticks, boom, those become daggers used for linear stabbing motions, known as tsuki, specifically targeting soft tissues like the throat. Flexible objects like a belt become flails, used to trap limbs or generate massive centrifugal whipping force. And blunt objects like pipes, those become breakers, using the length to generate brutal leverage and torque to just snap bones.
Now, before you write this off as just anime magic, listen to this. This exact philosophy is echoed in the real world through Kali, a Filipino martial art. Kali specializes in taking formal stick fighting techniques and translating them directly to knives and improvised street weapons. It proves a fundamental truth that Gu completely embodies. The lethal motion remains exactly the same no matter what you happen to be holding.
And finally, Section 5, the lethal jester mindset, psychological warfare.
Look, none of these physical skills, the footwork, the whip strikes, the material intelligence, absolutely none of it matters without the right psychological framework driving it. Let's bring Gun back in for a second to contrast them. Gun wants to beat you before the fight even starts by intimidating you with overwhelming fear. But Gu? Gu acts like a total jester. He uses silly humor to disarm you emotionally. He intentionally lowers his guard and acts like a goofball specifically so you think he's not a threat.
And that deception? It's a highly calculated tactical maneuver. Because when an opponent thinks you're joking around, they instinctively relax, their muscles loosen, they get sloppy. And the millisecond that happens, Gu shifts from laughing to lethal. That extreme, violent contrast triggers cognitive shock. The opponent literally cannot process the sudden shift in reality, which leaves them mentally paralyzed right as the strike lands.
So underneath all the jokes, Gu fights with a terrifying level of cold detachment. He understands the golden rule of armed combat. A weapon is simply a force multiplier. When he decides to fight, there is no holding back. And he certainly isn't standing there trading blows like some street brawler. He's executing a clinical, ruthless technique designed to definitively end the engagement as fast as possible.
When you put all these pieces together, training your kendo footwork for perfect distance control, snapping your wrists with blinding speed, and cultivating a sharp mind that will weaponize anything to survive, you arrive at the ultimate truth of Gu's style. It all boils down to this one perfect quote: "You don't need a sword to be a swordsman."
So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a little challenge to test your own material intelligence. Just look around the room you're sitting in right now. Based on everything we just covered about range, leverage, and force multipliers, what perfectly ordinary item next to you could you instantly weaponize? Thanks for joining me on this deep dive, and keep analyzing the world around you.